They're our college basketball super team.
They're fearless. They're unpredictable.
Jalen Suggs throws it down.
Kispert counted and one. Shamwat Shachua for the dunk.
We feel like we're just as good as any other team in the country.
And that was beautifully executed by Baylor.
Would you take Gonzaga or would you take the field for the NCAA tournament?
This is a chance for Baylor to make its mark.
They are one of, if not the best teams in basketball.
Oh, it's that Saturday morning hype that you can only get right here. We are back. She's Christine Williamson. I'm Jason Fitz. Welcome to beautiful Studio E in Bristol, Connecticut. It is time for Countdown to Game Day, covered by State Farm. We're going to get you caught up. We're going to get you ready for today's today's game day, I should say. You can stick around, hang out here in the app. You can watch us every single week. Christine, how was your week? You good?
Pretty good. I had a great breakfast this morning. Was excited to talk about college basketball. So, yeah.
I love that she just snuck in her breakfast. Okay,
it was solid.
We'll get breakfast takes from everybody along the way. A lot of star power we're going to get you. But first, we want to make sure that you know who the top 10 teams in all the land are. We've got it here for you. Here's the important thing, Christine. We talked a lot about these teams last week, and there hasn't been a ton of change here at the top. So when you look at this list, which school do you think, like, I'm a UNLV fan. They're not on this list. You're a Duke fan. They're not on this list.
Miami, no.
Miami, not on this list. Like, who do you think on this list would send us some swag? We got to figure out.
Baylor would send me swag.
Oh, you.
Immediately.
You. I like that.
I would ask them to send you swag also. But, yeah, I would totally get some swag from Baylor. And I feel like that's a good thing because they're number 2.
I mean, I feel like I've got some history in the state of Tennessee, so maybe I could reach out to them. But Wisconsin, underrated on the swag game. So, like, you know, I've had some fun times at the University of Wisconsin.
I would imagine that.
Well, you know who doesn't need free swag? Sean Farnham, ESPN college basketball analyst. Farnham, thanks so much for the time. Thanks for hanging out with us this morning. You know, when you went to UCLA, so are you just branded top to bottom in all things UCLA gear? Like, do you still get, as a UCLA legend, you get tons of swag?
I'm just being honest. I've been very limited on my amount of swag in recent years. However, with the new Jordan brand deal, I'm be all over the swag for the Bruins. I already let my people know that the first J's that come out in UCLA colors, I need to have them on my feet.
See, this is why we like having guests on here, because they help us with these things. All right, we're going to play a game with you, Farnham, and that game is Contender Pretender. So we'll lay out a team for you, and you tell us whether you think they're a contender for the national championship or a pretender. Are you ready to go here?
I'm nervous, but somehow, some way, I think we're going to navigate our way through this.
All right, let's start with the number 3 team in all the land, Villanova. They played their first game in 27 days, barely beat Seton Hall, but that's a long gap. So what do you got here? Contender, pretender?
They are definitely a contender. I think when you look at this team, that long of a gap, they played Seton Hall. Seton Hall's been playing some of its best basketball this season. Jay Wright's team is loaded. This roster looks like similar rosters that have won national championships for Villanova. When you think about Colin Gillespie, Jeremiah Robinson Earl, who's probably one of the more versatile scorers and offensive threats that we have in the college game, they have everything you need to be able to compete at a high level. The problem is it's almost like it's 2 seasons because they got their season started up in Bubbleville. They played all those games, and then they had that 27-day layoff that you just talked about. There's a lot of restarting the engine, getting re-engaged, and in particular, I saw some flaws at the defensive end of the floor against Seton Hall. They'll have to fix, but they're capable of doing it.
Stick there for a second before we move on. You mentioned the gap and getting re-engaged. From a player's standpoint, what's the toughest part of getting back into rhythm when you've had a long break?
The mental edge. I mean, it's not the physical aspect because even with the starting and stopping, you're still getting shots up. You're still doing a lot of those things. But the mental aspect of the game, being dialed in, and I think that's where it shows up at defense, because if you're not locked in for the full shot clock, the full possession, you're not fighting through screens, you're not communicating with your teammate, you can get disjointed at the defensive end and start chasing. And once the offense has you chasing, that's when things go bad.
All right, next up, number 4, Iowa, and I'm going to use a phrase that you yourself used before the show started. They did have their asses handed to them by Indiana on Thursday. So what do you think, contender or pretender?
All right, look, I responded to this email at 2 o'clock on Thursday. You know, I could have gone without the loss to Indiana. I'm going to go still contender. Here's why. Jordan Bohannon was atrocious in that game. I mean, he didn't hit a shot. Luka Garza was outstanding. And as long as you have Luka Garza on the floor and you have an offense that's capable of scoring over 90 points, which Iowa does, then they are still a contender. The light as far as how much we're turning it on and off for contender, dims a little bit, obviously, with the loss against Indiana. But this team, and when you have a player that you can literally at any point in time, you're going, okay, we're struggling offensively. Where do we go? We go to Luka Garza underneath, and we play through him because not only is he a great scorer down low on the block and he can create position close to the rim, they do have great shooters on the outside. They just did not shoot the ball well against Indiana, and conversely, that impacted their defense.
All right, so next up on the contender-pretender game, just because I like saying shaka smart, let's talk about Texas, a team that actually plays a little bit of defense. What do you got? Contender-pretender?
Definitely a contender. I love Shaka Smart's team. Because Shaka Smart, to me, they have the great ability to score the basketball defensively. They are a dangerous team. They have one of the best defensive efficiencies in all of college basketball. Great length out on the wings. They can really stretch you. Now, the concern comes at the guard position. They have struggled at times in important moments with guard play. The best story in all of college basketball simply is Andrew Jones. His battle through cancer. He is a survivor. And then to not only see him survive, but to conquer college basketball this year. He is their leading scorer, hit the game-winning shot at West Virginia. Love everything about Shaka Smart's team and Andrew Jones. And I'm rooting for him in particular because he's not just a survivor of cancer, but he has proven that he has gotten back to where he was beforehand, which is where we thought he would be, a potential pro prospect.
Love Shaka Smart, but do not love his hair this year. It's
what?
Very odd.
Come on.
But you don't even have hair.
Maybe
How can Christine call anybody out on hair?
She needs to go outside and talk to Seth and Fonz and Jay Bill.
Is usually bald, and I feel like we had a thing going, and then he decided to grow the fro. But somebody from Texas did tag me in something this week because I was trolling Shaka a little bit, and he said fear the fro. So I was like, okay, I get it.
I don't know. I like the rhyme pattern. I like grow the fro. Like I feel like that's powerful.
That makes sense.
Grow the
I mean,
fro.
you're either alliteration or a rhyme. Okay, so I feel like I'm the one that's talking about top 10 teams that have taken L's, but Tennessee was playing pretty well before they lost to Florida on Tuesday. So what do you think, contender or pretender?
Pretender. Defensively, they are a contender. Offensively, they are a pretender. And I think that's the big problem for this Tennessee Volunteer team. Is too often is the case, they rely so much on their defense that it wears down over the course of a contest. And we've seen them multiple times now this season struggle, whether it was with Florida this week or whether it was with Alabama. And their one matchup against Alabama that they'll have all season long, Alabama lit them up. Now, granted, Alabama's been lighting everybody up. They dropped 23 three-pointers against LSU earlier this week. But this Tennessee team, the inconsistencies at the offensive end, the lack of a go-to scorer when you need a bucket, that concerns me as far as their ability to compete and win a national championship.
All right, it is early in the history of this show, but so far I can tell you that we spent a lot of time last week praising Michigan. This week they lost. All right, so maybe we're the curse. I don't know. Farnham, Michigan, contender, pretender.
They are a contender. I love what Juwan Howard's team is all about. They've got great balance. They're one of only two teams in college basketball to rank inside the top 10 in offense and defensive efficiency. The other team, the team that we want swag from, Baylor. So, I mean, that's pretty good company to be part of.
Did you just put yourself in our swag battle here?
Well, look, I've heard that your co-host gets swag and you don't. At least that's what you told me. Never mind that. Hunter Dickinson is outstanding. Great size. They can play through him. He's one of the most dominant freshmen that we have in the game. And like Texas, they have great length on the wing. The question mark comes from consistency at the guard play, but I don't think there's much of a question there. This team defends. They share the ball. They're tough. They rebound. I love what Juwan Howard is building at Michigan.
All right, let's give some love to the AAC. Houston on a 5-game winning streak. They're 12-1 overall. What do you think? Contender, pretender?
Defensively, they are a contender. Offensively, not so much. Like, I love Marcus Sasser, and when he's going, he is fantastic. He's as good as really any player in the American Conference this year, which is crazy because Caleb Mills, who transferred out, was the preseason pick to be Conference Player of the Year. I love this team's defense. I love their ability to rebound. That's good enough to win them a couple of games in the NCAA tournament. But eventually you're going to have to score the ball at an elite level. They are not consistent enough. This team is very similar to me as Tennessee. That makes them a top 10 team, an Elite 8 caliber team. I just don't see them as a Final Four national champion.
Well, it's not necessarily a great year to be a college basketball blue blood, but let's take a look at one of them next. Number 9, Kansas. Remember, they're going to be taking on Oklahoma at noon Eastern today on ESPN. So, do you see them as a title contender or pretender?
Fitzy, we're talking about the Jayhawks coming off of back-to-back losses. Inside conference play. That doesn't happen very often. but I'm still buying them. I'm still saying contender. And here's why I'm telling you. Not so fast, my friend. I feel like I'm Corso all of a sudden with game day and everything. It's awesome. All right, but hey, this is why I'm still buying them. You can fix the problems that they had. They were down 18, were playing horrible at Oklahoma State, rallied to take the lead in that game to fumble it away. Disappointing, but yet fixable. You look at the game against Baylor. They held everybody in check except for Jared Butler. Jared Butler killed them. And from the outside, there were 5 uncontested, wide-open three-point shots that he had. That's a breakdown in communication and coverages. You can fix that. Yes, they don't have Doke Azubuike underneath this year. That's a problem. He can't protect the rim. I get it. But this team is still talented enough to make a great run in the NCAA tournament. They rely a lot more on their youth than they have in recent years, and they have to shoot the ball consistently. And that's where you look at Christian Braun and just how much he's impacted this team this year, as well as Jalen Wilson, who for the first 4 weeks of the season was one of the breakout stars of college basketball.
They're 4th in the Big 12 this season, but I'll be one to tell you that the Big 12 is one of the best basketball conferences in the country.
It took 11 minutes to get Big 12 praise.
It's a tough conference to play in. All right, well, the last team, number 10, Wisconsin. They're 12-3 after winning 2 in a row after getting blown out by Michigan. So what do you think, contender or pretender?
Why are you focused on all the negative here? I mean, you're talking about Iowa losing to Indiana. Like, I'm a half full kind of guy. Like, what are we doing here? Like, you know what? Contender. They got blown out against Michigan. It was a wiping of the floor in that game. There's no doubt about it. But that's not who Greg Gard's team is. Greg Gard's team controls the tempo every single game, except for the Michigan game. Didn't control much that night at all. But they can play inside out. They've got great versatility with their front court. It's one of the best front courts in all of college basketball. And Demetric Trice has become a very consistent scorer from them on the outside. And I think his offensive emergence makes me believe that, especially in the NCAA tournament, where teams aren't as familiar with your style of play, not as familiar with your sets as we see in conference play, I think this is a team that's going to cause a lot of problems when we get to the NCAA tournament.
All right, so in the spirit of trying to get more swag, let's talk more about Baylor. They got the big matchup. We mentioned it earlier today. Number 2, Baylor taking on Oklahoma State. And Cade Cunningham, obviously a big part of the story. So what do you expect from the game today, Farnham?
Look, I think that this is not going to be an upset in the making. And the reason why it's not going to be an upset in the making is exactly what we were talking about as far as Michigan goes. It's balance. The other team that's in the top 10 in offense and defensive efficiency is the Baylor Bears. They do such a great job defending, and they can switch everything, really, 1 through 5. So they keep you out on the perimeter. They rarely give up driving lanes to the hole. And then you're talking about the backcourt in particular at the offensive end of the floor. We mentioned Jared Butler. Jared Butler is playing at an All-American level. Scott Strew's team has taken the upset of last year, the pit in their stomach. Remember, this was a team we thought could win a national championship last year, and they never got an opportunity to try to fight for it. This year, they see it as their mission. They're focused on it, and I love the way that they're attacking it. I think this is another step for Baylor. They will take a loss inside the Big 12. They will, because of how difficult the conference is. It's just not going to be today.
So one of the guys that they have to defend, Cade Cunningham, he's 6'8", averaging 18 points per game, 6.2 rebounds per game. What do you expect to see out of him today?
I expect to see what we've seen all season long, and that's the guy that could be the number 1 overall pick in the NBA draft. He is silky smooth. Guard-like skills, and you mentioned 6'8". That is scary to think about. Now, the one thing I will say is at times I feel like he defers too much. He doesn't have that take over the game mentality, and I would like to see him try to take over this game today, because for them to win, he has to get north of 25 points in this game, get to 30, 35 points, and he is capable of doing it. His efficiency is off the charts, whether it's from 3 or attacking that mid-range jump shot. He's also superb in facilitating the offense, passing to his teammates, setting up the table, and then the hustle plays. That block that he had against Kansas, where he then went out of bounds, flung it in the court. He doesn't get the assist. That's the hockey assist, but that was the best hockey assist maybe we saw all season, and a very important win for Oklahoma State. Remember now, they were put on probation and they were told they couldn't play in the NCAA tournament. There's been a stay on that. So as they gather up some wins here inside conference play, they could find their way into the NCAA tournament, which would be great for all college basketball fans to get a chance to see Cade Cunningham on the biggest stage.
There's no way we can have Sean Farnham hang out with us and not ask him about the big news in the Pac-12, obviously. Larry Scott, Pac-12 commissioners, announced that he'll be stepping down at the end of June. So I'm going to ask you to quickly give me your thoughts on Larry Scott, and also a heated question for you, Farnham. At this point, the Pac-12 seems to be teetering in some ways on the verge of irrelevance in some sports. Are they closer to Power 5 or Group of 5 at this point?
Unfortunately, Group of 5. And the reason why they're closer to Group of 5 is you look at the fact that they 2 times out of the last 7 years they've been able to get inside the college football playoffs. They are on the outside looking in more often than not. You have to be superb and over the top great in the Pac-12 in order to get there. I think one of the things the next commissioner has to do is change the scheduling. The scheduling is not advantageous to protect the best teams like we've seen in other conferences, in particular the SEC, to make sure that their best teams have the best chance to thrive. The Pac-12 needs to adopt that. In basketball, they haven't won a national championship since 1997. That was Arizona Simon Says championship. Miles Simon, shout out to you and the Los Angeles Lakers as you guys continue to roll. But they need to be more relevant. Power 5 rankings, Ken Palm has the Pac-12 6th right now in college basketball. Larry Scott did a lot of really good things for the conference, in particular the Olympic sports, in particular broadening the global brand of the Pac-12. The China game was very successful for the conference overall. But the problem is this, the network, you can't find it. So it's unlike a lot of these other networks that we see, like the SEC network, ACC network, Big Ten network. You can't find the Pac-12 network. The Conference of Champions is the Conference of Champions of Olympic sports, not the 2 sports that make the national headway. That needs to change with the next commissioner.
Sheesh, things are tough out west. Well,
no, it's not. Have you been there? The sun is great. It's not 24 degrees. What are you talking about?
I mean,
it's great out west.
I like the cold. No, I don't. I'm just lying. I was just trying to be a glass half full type person because you said I was glass half empty. So
I appreciate
that.
Like
I would give you that. Thanks so much, Fawn, for joining us.
Thanks, Fawn.
All right, it is time for Who's Hoopin'. We're going to take a look at who is hooping around the league.
Hello, welcome to the big time. He is showing off the bounce. Oh, the lob!
He is a winner with a capital W.
Oh, yeah, oh, yeah, oh, yeah. Alabama's John Petty Jr. is a freaking bucket. On Tuesday, he hit 7 straight threes versus LSU, finishing with 24 points, 8 of 10 from beyond the arc in a blowout win over LSU. What a bucket.
And speaking of Alabama, overall they're hooping atop the SEC standings, undefeated in conference play. Alabama's doing it with the long ball. In the aforementioned LSU blowout win, I just wanted to use aforementioned in the sentence, Bama made 23 threes. That's not a misspeak. An SEC record. Crimson Tide didn't take any mid-range jumpers and scored 105 points against LSU. Just 1 against Kentucky in the mid-range jumper section. So SEC Network analyst Peter Burns calls them the Alabama Houston Rockets. I don't know if that's a compliment, but I know they're hooping.
I love when we get some women's basketball in this show. Paige Beckers, she's a freshman. She sprained her ankles minutes earlier and then hit that late three-pointer, which iced the win for UConn over Tennessee. The dagger gives the hype freshman a signature moment in her growing legend.
An important moment right after Gino said it's not a rivalry anymore. So good that they had a good game. Last up, Naz Hillman, put up a 50-burger. I still don't know why it's a burger. Like 50 points. Why is it a burger? But he puts up 50 points for number 11 Michigan in an 81-77 loss to number 17 Ohio State. That's most by a men's or women's Michigan baller and just the second D1 player in the last 20 seasons with 50 points and 50 boards in a game. Good work.
Fitz, you mentioned this earlier because you are not a Duke fan. You do not like them. But this week, something happened in college basketball that has not happened since December of 1961. Neither one of us were alive then, right, Fitz?
Wow.
It was the last time that Duke, Kentucky, and North Carolina were all unranked in the AP poll. What is happening? It's 2021. That's what's happening. I mean, you can't expect anything. Everything is unexpected.
Well, if 2021 gives me the gift of no Duke, I'm happy. All right, so let's get some thoughts on all of this from our ACC Network guru and good friend, Jordan Cornette, joining us. Jordan, I think we've got Jordan here, right? Jordan? Oh, look at Jordan. Looking good, my friend. Hey, thanks for hanging out with us. Let's start with Duke. They've dropped their last 2 games. They're 5-4 this season. They play Louisville today on ESPN at 4 p.m. Eastern. So what the heck's gone wrong for Duke?
Well, I'll tell you what's gone wrong with this show is you guys have talked for 20 minutes and have not mentioned any ACC basketball. We are college basketball. And then you break me in to talk about the teams that are struggling right now. Okay, that's fair. I will dive into this Duke team and talk about their struggles right now. quite simply, it's not a Duke team that we've seen in years past. They don't have that star power. They don't have that guy that you can just say, go get us a bucket. Yes, Matthew Hurt has shined. He's been one of the best players in this conference, but it's the intestinal fortitude of Duke that has been really frustrating to watch. And what I mean by that is the inability to keep the perimeter defense in front of them. Too many dribble drives. They've been beat up on the defensive glass at times. And this team is not a pretty one that just goes out there and knocks down shots. They're in the bottom half of the conference in all the important offensive metrics, aside from offensive rebounding. They've shown toughness there, but the whole lot of the struggle comes from no true star. Yes, Matthew Hurt's been good, but defensively they are vulnerable. All that to say this, Jalen Johnson returning for this team and how he looked versus Pitt. 24 points and 15 rebounds in that game, throwing 7 assists and 4 blocks. Maybe that's the identity that this offense takes on along with Matthew Hurt. Maybe the best basketball is ahead for the Blue Devils as they take on Louisville today, a team with a great backcourt.
We shall see. Let's go from Durham down the street to Chapel Hill. UNC, honestly, their struggles started last season, but North Carolina is only 4-3 in conference play this season. The Tar Heels play NC State. They lost to them earlier in the season at 2 p.m. Eastern. What do you make of what's going on in Chapel Hill?
Well, Christine, I did that first game. I commentated on that one, and Coach Williams for North Carolina echoed the same sentiment I shared for the 40 minutes of the game. It was an awful defensive performance from Carolina. That's a place I expect them to improve in a rivalry game here. And why North Carolina fans should be excited is because that backcourt, that much celebrated backcourt coming in with R.J. Davis and Caleb Love is starting to recognize who they are and announcing themselves in this conference. Caleb Love's coming off a 20-burger, Fitzy, in his last game versus Wake Forest. And for reasons like that, you should believe that maybe this perimeter's on their way to putting it together. I look at North Carolina and I look at Duke and I say, North Carolina has the better path to success this season. And again, I look at both North Carolina with a young backcourt, Duke with all that young personnel, and say, in this COVID era, those are the teams that I'm going to peg to fail because, as you heard Sean talk about it, it's the mental aspect that wears on these athletes when you don't know if there's going to be a pause in the program. You don't know who your next opponent is. Sometimes that can have an impact, and it's been a negative one on these younger teams as we've seen the themes play out.
Okay, so when you think about Duke and North Carolina, do you think either team has a chance of making the tournament this season?
I think both do, and I think both will. And when you've got coaches and you've got the talent that they do have, I think we've seen that attrition early on because they're young. They'll find a groove. They'll figure it out. Duke doesn't go on losing streaks for long, and North Carolina's just got too much talent, especially in the interior, where their best offense is go get that thing and bully you on the low block. That'll always find a way to rise to the top and find wins. They'll do enough, but in this era, when you're not sure how many games you'll have in a truncated season, you got to take every game for what it's worth and go out there and win. And I'm kind of noticing the trend here is we're going to talk about Duke and North Carolina. What about Virginia? They're a really good team. What about Florida State? They're a really good team. What about Virginia Tech? Every time, Christine, I'm on with Fitz, it's always dog in the ACC. I'm tired of this.
Hey,
real tired of it, Fitz. You're too good of a friend to do this to
Jordan,
me.
I'm an ACC girl. Don't worry.
First and foremost, Mr. Cornette, watch the show. Last week we talked about Virginia plenty. We gave them plenty of love. Yeah. Second, I went to high school in Bowie, Maryland. PG, I went to those Maryland Duke games when Maryland was still in the ACC. I got ACC love. Come on now. All right. So
we do miss Maryland in the ACC. Yeah, Maryland was good basketball.
By the way, I'm going to make 50 burrito a thing. All right. So we love it when you join the program because we always have a good time. But we're going to get you to look back at some of the last week's plays with us with some surprisingly great plays brought to you by State Farm. And let's start with some blue blood theme here. Surprisingly great for Georgia, not so much for Kentucky. The Wildcats lost another game, this time to Georgia in the final seconds. What do you think here? Cornette, you
gotta protect the goal. You gotta protect the goal above all else on an out-of-bounds under, and it's plays like that that have defined Kentucky this season. It's a mental lapse. 3 defenders, all of them giving up a clear pathway at the rim. A devastating loss and a huge collapse from Kentucky in that game.
You said his name earlier. Let's show the highlight now. R.J. Davis. We just talked about North Carolina. Here's arguably the best play of the season we've seen all year. A little behind the back pass here. This is something Cornette could have done, right? Like, Jordan Cornette, you could have done this.
Easy.
Yeah, with the game controller in front of me playing video games, that's about it. But this is when Carolina's at their best. Generating plays through excitement and energy, going off script. When you have that many athletes, Leaky Black to Armando Bacot, the punctuation, need to see more of this effort from an uber-athletic Carolina team that has their best basketball in front of them.
All right, since we're talking about North Carolina, let's talk about Roy Wavy Williams. Check out these sneaks. I mean, obviously, if you're at UNC, this is a natural progression, but, like, he's pretty swaggy, no?
Christine, I love Wavy Williams. How about this? Coach Williams, I'm talking to him on the phone the other week. Yes, that's a name drop. Go ahead and pick that up off the ground. And when I'm talking to Coach Williams, he goes, I'm talking about his shoes. I was like, Coach, you got more style than anybody in this game, even the young cats that you're coaching. And he goes, Jordan, what size shoe are you? I go, okay.
Oh, snap.
Coach, I'm a 14. I go, I'm a 14, Coach. He goes, see, I was hoping you'd say 9.5 because that's my shoe size. That's their test shoe size for all their shoes. I have every Nike, every Jordan, and I was going to ship them to you.
Mother of God, I'm a 9.5. I am a 9.5. Jordan Cornette.
You think Shay's going to be married to a 9.5, Coach Williams? Come on.
Yeah, Coach Williams, hit me up. Look, we've had all this ACC love, all this Big 12 love with y'all. How about the Big 10? Purdue freshman Jaden Ivey gets the clutch 3, knocks off number 15 Ohio State. Lenardi has 10 of the 14 Big 10 teams making the NCAA tournament in the latest bracketology. Best conference in college basketball, right, Jordan?
It is absolutely the best conference in college basketball. I can say that as an ACC guy because every game played in that conference I have to sit down and watch. And also, put some respect on the Ivy family name. That is basketball royalty. Niele Ivey won a national championship playing women's hoops at Notre Dame in 2000. She has now replaced Coach Muffet McGraw, the legend there. She's doing great things, and so is Jaden Ivey.
Poster of the week, Rutgers' Ron Harper Jr. Oh my freaking goodness. This is embarrassing. He just completely mossed that defender. I feel bad.
He gets it from his daddy, Christine. Ron Harper had bounce himself. Junior's going to have the same thing. Guy can absolutely score at Rutgers. Needs to find consistency. That's a dangerous team.
All right, we're getting dangerous here with some pronunciation. Arizona buzzer beater over Arizona State. Wildcats get the tip in by freshman Azulis Tubelis.
Man, you killed that.
I feel like I did okay with that.
You nailed it.
Oh, look at that. I'm a pro.
You nailed it.
That's really all we got to show you on this highlight. We can just keep moving. I just wanted to prove I could pronounce a name.
All right, and then
Kenjo definitely got fouled there. I mean, no whistle.
I mean, but it's in our top place, so that's all that matters. All right, this is one of my favorite things. I actually found out the whole entire story of this by Fitzy in a little bit of trolling. Wow. Florida blew out number 6 Tennessee. Of course, the Florida men's basketball Twitter account posted the lopsided score with a "We're loving it" in reference to allegations by the Dan Patrick Show that Tennessee football paid recruits with money in McDonald's bags. And this is the ultimate. This is just amazing, honestly.
Well, you guys both know me well. I do love that the trolling is going on there, but as it pertains to Tennessee, if I was one of those recruits, I would be more upset if I opened up my McDonald's bag and didn't see a Big Mac and saw money. Give me the Big Mac. I want the food. That's how I want to be honored with my commitment to a university. Give me the Big Mac.
I can't promise you I'll be professional on this show every week, but I can promise you you'll get Bill Walton. This is the Bill Walton quote of the week for our show.
You milk your best player all game, every game, from the start.
I understand that. And you've said before that you've been milked and you've milked others. But look, Evan Mobley.
I love being milked. I love being milked. I love being milked. I love being milked.
Oh, my goodness.
It doesn't require words. I mean, I was in the studio with Dallin Cuff when we heard that in our ears, and I was like,
my goodness.
This is why the guy will work here forever. I mean, that's why he'll always have a place for lines like that. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I'm not going to say anything. I like my job. Let's get to the next one quickly. A little bit of high school basketball action here.
Oh my
Jordan Cornette, have you seen this highlight yet? This is Keyshawn Murphy's dunk.
Yes.
And look at it. Brings the house down. You did that in high school,
taking
right?
a whole human out.
I mean, he literally brought the house down.
That's unbelievable. Like, seriously, that high school had to be sweating some serious bullets. That thing connects with anybody. I mean, you're talking about some serious liability. I don't know if I'm dunking ever again after that play.
I feel like that's the most impressive thing, that nobody else nobody got taken out by that, because I feel like I would have totally been just staring at it.
I'm just going to use that as the reason I don't dunk moving forward. Jordan, we appreciate you hanging out with us. What? I'm just going with it. I'm going with it. Jordan, thanks for hanging out. All right, go ahead, Christine.
Before we go, I'm obsessed with this because this happened at the inauguration. What was that, this week? That was on Thursday, Wednesday? Oh my goodness, it's been a long week. week. Anyways, Bernie Sanders has been memed across literally everything. And our wonderful producers have put together a package of Bernie Sanders being memed in sports. And our first one, this is amazing.
Oh, God, I remember this.
Absolutely amazing. Chris Webber's infamous timeout. Bernie Sanders was there.
And unimpressed. I mean, he's not even.
Yeah, of course. No, he's like, what is going on? First of all, you shouldn't be calling a timeout. This is absolutely ridiculous. But I love this. It looks amazing. Okay, next. Bobby Knight tossing chairs. Guess what? He tossed Bernie. He experienced it firsthand.
Oh, my God.
The first time I looked at this, I honestly didn't even see Bernie. I assumed he was in the background, but then the second time I looked at it, I realized that he was actually in his hands.
Speaking of the way that they've hidden him here, we got a little Georgia State love. Ron Hunter, then the coach of Georgia State, fell off his chair after his son hit a game winner against Baylor. Everybody's going wild, but not Bernie on the far right. He's just hanging out there.
I love that. I love that. Always unimpressed. This is Bernie with some of his hoop head buddies. Just very casual. It's not fair that Bernie got to wear it whatever he wanted to wear and everybody else had to wear that.
It was very chilly in the studio that day. And Bernie, just like me, roots against Duke. So I love this. We see you, Bernie, there with the Beat Duke newspaper. That's good work by him.
Hoya destroy us? Anybody?
Oh.
Just kidding.
Well,
let's go. We talking about UNC all day.
Yeah, but let's see a little Michael Jordan. I almost said Michael Jackson. Little MJ hit this clutch shot as a freshman. Bernie was hanging out next to Dean when it happened.
This one actually looks like it's the most realistic because it really looks like he's there. Maybe it's just because he's small, but yeah, you love to see it.
Great work by our team putting Bernie in all sorts of different situations, having a blast doing it. And feel free to send us your best Bernie sports moments. That's a fun way to do it. So obviously we want you to get caught up on what's coming up on game day. Today, they've got a lot coming on the show. Tom Izzo and Jared Butler are going to join the show. Gonzaga, Baylor, or the field, they'll give you their thoughts. Duke, Louisville, breaking down what's gone right, what's gone wrong for different schools across the landscape. You see the studio there. Reese and the guys getting ready to give you all the action. Obviously, it's a big day of ESPN college basketball across the networks. Be sure to keep hanging out right here all day. To watch it, you can just authenticate, stay in the app, and hang out. You can hang out with us every single Saturday at 10:30 a.m. She is Christine Williamson. I'm Jason Fitz. We appreciate you hanging out with us on Countdown to Game Day, covered by State Farm. Y'all enjoy a great day of college basketball. And Cornette, give me those shoes. 9.5. Come on.